Yo guys, got a video for you here about truth about RTX 5000. It surprised me. I really like this video. I'll put Vex's link in the description, but let's get into it.
So Nvidia announced their RTX 50 series GPUs. It looks pretty clean. That's the new cooler design. It's definitely real. And he's got his nice leather jacket on. You can have yourself your own leather jacket for a cool price of about $9,000. For the rest of their presentation, it was pretty hilarious because we did live stream this, and I actually had an AI counter in the upper right corner of the screen. It's funny just to kind of scroll through the entire presentation and just watch that AI counter go up. He had over 200 AI counters. That's a record. It's a goddamn record if I've ever seen it. And it's actually more than we counted for the AMD event.
Yeah, I don't know if he's excited about this or if he's like kind of like, too much AI is being used. I mean, the future is definitely AI. I put it in the comment in the video. Because I believe, consumers will dictate whether AI gets adopted widespread in a lot of graphics cards. Because if you don't want AI in your card, you don't have to use it. Just get a different card. You can get the 30 series that are still just as good. They might have more power draw, but they're just as good or very comparable performance. Usually they're only like 10-15% not as efficient and not as performance as the 40 series. We don't know how well the 50 series is going to perform, but yeah, let's keep going.
Baby, rookie numbers. Jensen is a league of his own. But I think it's time that we actually jump into the GPUs. We've got all the specs, we got release dates, we got price on these GPUs. They announced 4 GPUs. They announced.
Oh, look at this. So the 5090 at 3400 AI tops, I'm assuming maybe teraflops. Not too well versed with graphics cards. I know the basics. 2 grand. That's actually pretty good. I mean, 2 grand for a brand new card. That's the high end. That's actually pretty good. Most graphics cards, like I believe the 3090 when it came out, it was going at like a little over 2 grand, 25, I think. But it's good. My guess here is they're trying to pack value for the money. This is just again, I don't have but look at the prices, 50, 70, $600. That's actually pretty decent for 1,000 AI tops. So I mean, you could probably do 2K gaming, maybe 4K 30 frames per second with low ray tracing settings on, maybe even medium. That's pretty decent. That's pretty good value. I have a 3060 Ti right now, and I can't do ray tracing on medium. I can do like low, so that's a jump up if you wanted to do that. And then 5070 is 1400, so that's probably like more comfortable 4K gaming. This is obviously going to be high-end 4K gaming, and then of course top of the line, you should be getting high frame rates and almost anything that you want if you just want to splurge. But I still think that 2000 is very affordable for a top of the line card, considering Nvidia's history of their prices have been fairly over that. And to be fair, it hasn't necessarily been Nvidia. You also have scalpers and resellers that are going to buy this, so just be wary of that. I wouldn't, me personally, if I had a buddy that was like, yo, which graphics card should I get? I would just say, hey, if you want similar performance to like a console, a 5070 is probably a good option. You're probably even going to get some better frame rates and performance. That's a great starting point. And then the 5070 Ti, $800 for that 1400 AI tops. I'm not sure what that's referring to, if that's just how much AI processors are in the card, but obviously the more the better. Let's keep going.
It's the 5090, 5080, 5070 Ti, and the 5070.
But you
Because here I
definitely see they're
polled you
going
guys,
for
and I just asked you, I
value.
was like, hey, what do you
Value
think
and
the
performance, which
5090
is
is going to
good.
cost? And a lot of you guys said it'd be $2,400 plus.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. So let's just, out of 1500 votes, so 45%, so basically half of them. So let's, we're at 450. No, because half of 1,000 is 500. Half of 12 would be 6. So it's about 740-ish people that voted more than 2,400. So right there, that kind of gives you a general idea of what the public perception is going to be of these graphic cards. A lot of people are expecting high prices. So when they see, oh wow, it's $500 cheaper, I think Nvidia is aiming on that psychological mindset of people are expecting high prices, and then they look and I think they're part of them is banking on people going out and buying it because they're like, oh wow, it's cheap, it's cheaper than before, great, let's do it.
I asked you guys, hey, what do you think the 5080 is going to cost? And actually, there's a lot of people in chat that said, hey, we keep voting for the highest price one because we want to go higher and you didn't give us a higher option.
Right, so they even think
that
it's
was
higher.
The idea
That's
going
crazy.
into this. I did not expect them to be kind of reasonable. And I might be the first to admit, hey, I might have been wrong. At least I showed you guys a bunch of leaks before, and you can see right there that the 4080.
Wait, what's this? Let's see. Australian markup. So this is US dollars, 13 or 48.
He says that it is $1,000, and a lot of the rumored prices that I was seeing, the leaked prices that I even got directly, was leading me to believe that it was like $1,300. I think I've learned my lesson. Like, honestly, those were legit leaks, but I think all that.
So, but you also have to realize if you're getting that straight from NVIDIA, I'm assuming it's $1,000. So if you get it from Amazon, I doubt they're gonna be selling it for $1,000. It'll probably be $1,300.
Stuff is fake up until this point, and NVIDIA likes to obscure the price before the actual launch of the product, and I'm just gonna keep that in mind for the future. But I think there is a different side to this of why these cards are kind of fairly priced that NVIDIA doesn't really want you to see, and they're obscuring a lot of things to specifically hide this from you. So let's dig in.
My guess is this. I just want to guess because I like doing this. My guess is they're investing heavily into AI to actually give upscaled performance numbers with AI and not actual hardware. So I think they're going to try and lean away from hardware doing the work and mostly software doing the work. So it's not going to have to put as much of a toll on the graphics card. And therefore, NVIDIA can sell the cards for cheaper because they're not having to invest a ton of money into the hardware. That's my guess. So let's see what they say.
Into these specs, the confirmed cherry-picked performance from NVIDIA. The first thing I want to talk about here is the cooler design itself. Now, this guy impressed the out of me. Here is the back side of the graphics card. So the 5090, 5080, 5070, they all look the same. This is an iconic screenshot where they say that the 5070 is 4090 performance. We'll dig into that in just a second, but look at the cooler itself. There's two fans. Both fans are actually able to blow through the cooler, which means that there can't be a PCB where
well, if that's true, if this card can do 4090 levels, that's good for almost anyone. I think they're definitely trying to bank on people jumping in NVIDIA and getting their cheap end cards. And I mean, let's be fair, I think Intel swayed NVIDIA a bit because the Intel Art card, from what I've seen, has been insanely good value for the money, similar to a 3060 Ti at about half the price. So 250, I believe, is how much the card is. Don't quote me on it, I don't remember. But anyways, let's keep going.
Normally, the PCB would be on a graphics card. And the way that NVIDIA is getting this to work is there's actually a PCB in the middle of the graphics card. They have to be rerouting the PCIe connector out to where it would normally be because that can't really change. And also they have to be rerouting the display connectors on the end of the GPU. So these cards look very different. And actually, what this has resulted in is the 5090. They've made this a 2-slot graphics card. It's small, and it's because this cooler design is so goddamn efficient because both fans are able to just pass right through the fins for the GPU. I personally don't like the way it looks as much compared to last gen. I think the 40 series Founders cards actually looked better, like that asymmetrical design where there's like a fan on each side of it, kind of contrasted that dichotomy. But these ones are a little bit more symmetrical. I don't think they look as good, but they still look very clean. This whole presentation was very weird though, because they didn't really talk about the graphics card's performance or specs or even show, like they didn't really show much in the presentation itself. They ended up offloading everything straight to their website immediately. Down here, when I show you guys specs, because I have actually compiled everything into a spreadsheet so we can take a look at this and actually see theoretical performance and kind of compare against the performance that NVIDIA is showing us. But I got all those specs from down here on their website. So you can see like here, there's the 5090 and it shows as these different ones. And if you go to full specs here, then you can see everything here. So that's where I've gotten all my information. I'll leave links to this in the description. You want to take a closer look. They show a lot of different stuff here. Let's first off just show the RTX 4090. Now this guy is going to be $2,000. It's going to be available on January 30th, which is pretty soon. The 4090 was $1,600 before, so this is technically increasing in price although the 4090 sold for about $2,000 for most of its life. I don't know if this is really an increase in price. Also, Jensen had a hilarious way of trying to rationalize the price of the 5090.
RTX 4090 for $1,599. You bring it
I mean, that's expensive, but the 5090 is just going up by what, $400 before tax? That's really not that bad.
home to your $10,000 PC entertainment command center. Isn't that right? Don't tell me that's not true.
I mean, most people aren't going to invest 10 grand. I would say 5 grand for sure.
Yeah, apparently spending $10,000 is perfectly fine, and if they up it by $400, then it's not really a big deal.
Well, to be fair, his point is, if you're going to spend 5 grand, 2 grand is not, well, 10 grand. He's saying, he is trying to downplay it for sure, I agree. But the point is like, okay, you're investing already a truckload of money into a good rig. We're the graphics card you want because we're the best. What I think he should have said personally is, look, you're already investing thousands of dollars into a good rig. Your rig probably has a $500 CPU, a $1,000 to $1,500 GPU, plus you've probably got top of the line RAM, top of the line SSDs. You're running a really powerful machine. So we want to give you the best performance. And we believe $2,000 for this much processors is value for the money. That's what he should have said. I think that would have sold a lot of people. And then he should have went into the specs of the card and be like, this is why, look at this, compare this to your previous 4090, compare this to, for all you people who might not be wanting to upgrade yet, look at the previous 30 series graphics cards versus this. Some key selling points. That's
Thanks,
what
Jensen.
I think he should have
So we go to
done.
the next GPU here, the RTX 5080. Now this guy is launching on January 30th as well. So we all know reviewers are going to get absolutely bombed on January 30th, and I might be receiving samples too. But this guy, $1,000. This price isn't like phenomenal, not as bad as we all probably thought it would be. The 5070 Ti is actually going for
I mean, hell, the 3090s and 3080s are still over a grand. So the fact that you can get a newer card for less than an older one is still good.
$750.
Just saying.
And that is actually $50 cheaper than the previous 4070 Ti. Even though these prices have surprised me, I honestly think Nvidia's having to drop the prices or keep them the same for reasons that we will discuss when it comes to the specs. Now, the RTX 5070 is going to be coming in at $550. They're kind of grouped together here, but these guys are coming in February. We don't know the release date of these, but I assume that they're going to be distanced at least a little bit away from January 30th. Now let's get back to the 5090 here. And
it makes sense. They don't want to ruin their potential sales of their highest end GPU by releasing cheaper products. You're just screwing yourself at that point.
They do actually show some performance against the 4090. This stuff is really, really weird. And you might have noticed during the presentation that this seems really good. RTX 5070, Nvidia says, is the 4090 performance, but for $550. If we're being serious here, we're looking at each other, we're like, really? Are you sure about that? Based on the specs that we have had rumored up to this point, absolutely no.
Again, I don't think he's looking outside the box. I think they could do that, but it's going to be heavily AI influenced, not hardware influenced, which could off-put some people.
Way that the 5070 is going to be anywhere remotely close to a 4090. And this is where RTX 50 series gets pretty complicated, because they did introduce a new feature, and that is DLSS 4. And it's multiple frame generation. I will be making a follow-up video talking about DLSS 4 and actually NVIDIA Reflex 2. But DLSS 4 is pretty weird, and I don't really want to go in too depth in it in this video, but a lot of the numbers that NVIDIA shows is going to be inflated with this. But that's only available on 50 series graphics cards. Actually, most of these games that are shown here are using that multiple frame generation. Cyberpunk, Alan Wake 2, Black Myth Wukong, these are all NVIDIA sponsored titles. None of these are actually using just rasterization in the games. Even the two games that don't include the frame generation are still utilizing ray tracing. So obviously NVIDIA is pushing ray tracing to a further degree this generation. I don't think that surprises anybody, but they're not even showing us what non-ray trace games are, and I think that's because NVIDIA is actually trying to hide that performance because the specs actually don't look that good without ray tracing. And I think that is a good segue into, I'm not segueing into a sponsor, goddammit, I'm not Linus, okay? Here are the specs. Okay, now there's a lot of shit on the screen here.
What a fucking call out. That was good.
And I think I'm just going to hide all the ones that we are not looking at currently. And then we can kind of clean up the screen a bit. So over here, we have the RTX 4090 and 5090. I just want to compare these two. These CUDA cores are the ones that actually contribute mostly to rasterization performance. So not ray tracing, you know, not AI and all that kind of shit. Those are the reference point for that. And we're seeing about 30% more CUDA cores with the 5090 versus the 4090. And then, but in terms of ray tracing cores, these are new generation ray tracing cores on the 5090, so they will be a little bit elevated in terms of their efficiency and all that kind of stuff. Also here, the multi-frame generation, this is why it seems to be only available on 50 series, is because the 50 series has insane AI performance, like really insane. Like 40 series was already solid. It just went, hey, almost triple that in one generation. So NVIDIA's clearly prioritizing something. And what's interesting,
Well, and if you look at that, to me, that's already worth a lot of value for your money. If you're big into the AI, doing your frames and upscaling your frames, that's triple the performance at only a $500 cost. Plus, you're also getting what, like 5,000 more cores. Still really good.
interesting about the 4090 to 5090s, we're actually
Just
seeing a
saying.
clock speed regression. So the boost clock on the 4090 is 2.52 gigahertz, and we're actually dropping to 2.41. This is probably because the massive amount of cores that are on this guy draws a lot of power too. So
That's
it's
what I think.
probably just can't get the clocks up. We'll see if there's like an overclocked model or if there's a 5090 Ti for some reason. That 4090 had 24 gigabytes of VRAM and the 5090 has 32. And you should see the size of this PCB for this chip. It is insane, bro. Like there's so much shit on this tiny ass little board. It's like actually an impressive, just an impressive piece of engineering. It's crazy to me. Along with that, as a higher bit bus and it's on GDDR7 memory, which all just adds up to basically having like 70% faster VRAM in general on the card. Now this VRAM combined with more cores, despite being at a lower clock speed, actually does lead to a 125 watt increase. So you can actually see on the 5090, they added another whole media engine, or at least for encoding for the GPU. So this one will probably be better for creators, like even more so. So based off of these specs, look at the benchmarks here, 30 to 40% more performance, but how much is this being limited by ray tracing? I don't really know. Gamers care about rasterization because that is what will get your frame rate higher when you're not using ray tracing, but it is also cool to see ray tracing performance get to new levels because it'll be more and more usable, but it's hard to tell here. And the reason why I say like the rasterization performance, I think NVIDIA is trying to hide it, is actually when it comes to the other graphics cards, because the 4090 or the 5090 is going to be insane, and it's costing about the same price as what the 4090 has been going for. So honestly, I'm not offended by that. And now let's look at the 4080 versus the 5080. The 4080 used to be $1,200. It really sucked to that price point, and now this one is going to be $1,000. So it went down in price, which is pretty cool. However, though, when we actually look at the specs, I don't think this card is as interesting as a lot of us maybe would have thought it would be. It especially comes up when you compare it to what the 4080 Super was. There's a Super series for 40. What stood out about this specific card is that they dropped the price mid-generation. They dropped it from $1,200 to $1,000. It's probably because NVIDIA learned their lesson. I think this is probably the more proper comparison. These specs don't look that impressive.
Well, he just proved the point. NVIDIA is responding to the demand. They made a card that people were like, that's a little too much. I don't want to spend $1,200 on a 4080. Okay, let's make a super and we'll make it cheaper and we'll dial down some of the stuff. Boom, people
10,
bought it.
200.
It's not about what you think. It's about what people in general think. People who are buying these cards, if people think it's valuable at $1,000, NVIDIA is gonna cater. They want to sell the cards. They want money,
40 cores, CUDA
Just
cores
saying.
on the
You know?
4080
You gotta
versus
think like how they think.
10752 on the 5080, which really is not that many CUDA cores more. Even if the new cores, the new architecture generation, a lot more efficient or something like that, I would still only expect for the rasterization in games to be like 10, maybe 15% faster. And that's like on a good day. And if you look here too, ray tracing cores, yes, this is a new generation of ray tracing cores, but there's only 4 more on the 5080. That's like a...
Yeah, the only thing that makes sense to me as why the 5080 is supposedly that much better than the 4080 is they're heavily investing into AI and upscaling, where they can do a lot more with a lot less.
Flip the books at all for ray tracing. This isn't going to be a ton faster in terms of gaming performance. However, though, again, like the 5090 and the
Look at that.
4090,
Look at the
there's a lot
AI.
more AI performance. I know, surprise,
See?
surprise, you never would have guessed AI performance. Almost, I mean, it's over doubling on the TOPS performance for AI. By the way, TOPS stands for trillions of operations per second. I think I should have
There you
actually
go.
lowercase
Trillions
the
of
S if I want
operations
to
per
do that
second.
properly, but
I didn't know that.
we
That's
ball.
cool.
Now, what could help the performance a little bit is the boost clock does jump up a little bit by about 70 megahertz. It's not crazy. The only other thing here is this is actually going to be based on GDDR7 VRAM, which means it'll have faster bandwidth. We're seeing, even though they both have 16 gigabytes, the new one will have 960 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. Also, the power consumption is going up a little bit more, probably a combination of GDDR7 and the extra cores and stuff. Like, I don't think this new architecture is really that much more efficient than 40 series was. I don't know, but that's with ray tracing. That's probably because the new ray tracing cores are just better in general, which is
Take
an
more power,
advantage,
right?
but we don't really get to see how much better rasterization performance is, because I think NVIDIA is trying to hide that, because I really don't think the 5080 will be that much faster than the 4080 in rasterization. And they're really relying on, it seems like, DLSS 4 multi-frame gen in order to make up sort of that gap. So here's the 4070 Ti versus the 5070 Ti. I want to make a note of it on NVIDIA's website themselves, okay? The 5070 Ti is being compared to the 4070 Ti. Made a typo on their website, but it's being compared to this GPU specifically, and I think that's for a very, very important reason that benefits NVIDIA. I know, crazy. It might seem pretty damn good on the surface. It's like, well, the 4070 Ti was $800, and then the new card is going to be $50 less. That's pretty good. Then you might look here, it's like, oh, the CUDA cores are actually increasing by a significant amount. That's not bad, and you're also getting another 10 ray tracing cores, and on top of that, you're getting basically like 3 times the AI performance. You're getting more VRAM, and because it's on GDDR7, and because the bus width is wider, because you're on because you need to accommodate more memory, then you actually get a lot more memory bandwidth. That should lead to more performance, especially at higher resolutions that take more advantage of memory bandwidth. The power consumption also seems like it's going up just a little bit, but not crazy. This comparison looks pretty good, and I think that's why NVIDIA wants to compare the 5070 Ti versus the 4070 Ti. 30 to 40% faster. This graph somehow seems to look the same on every single GPU, it seems like. But what NVIDIA doesn't want you to see, and the reason they make that comparison, is because the 4070 Ti Super. And let's go ahead and hide the old 4070 Ti. And despite the name of the GPU, that doesn't really mean much here. And the 4070 Ti Super was also $800. When you compare the CUDA core count, there's only like 500 more CUDA cores. It's not a large amount of CUDA cores. I'll throw it up on the screen what it is. And things get weirder too, because you think the new generation would have really increased ray tracing performance. It only has 4 more RT cores. So despite them being a new generation, I highly doubt they're going to be that much faster.
Right, but look at the price, 800 versus 750. You know what they're trying to do, right? Like, they're trying to get people on their latest and greatest generation. Because my theory here is NVIDIA is going all in on AI. They are going to start really heavily going into AI, where it's mostly just software and AI hardware that's just powering your card. It's not even going to be hardware anymore. Like, I think in the next 15 years, we're going to see that shift if people accept this and are okay with it, because it really depends on the collection of consumers who are buying these products to really tell the manufacturer NVIDIA, oh, okay, it looks like this product's selling. People want AI. Oh, let's put more AI into it. Obviously, the trend is from these previous cards, from 706 tops to 1400, is people generally don't care. I don't care. I use DLSS on my 3060, and it is more than sufficient for what I've got. I get the concern. I get the whole graphics cards are expensive. They are. You're right. Depends on what you want to game on and what your budget is and what kind of frames you're wanting. Me personally, I think 2K is the sweet spot for gaming. 2K at 60 frames. I can do that with a 3060, maybe even a 3070. So I'd be more interested in getting a 70 series than anything else. maybe even an 80 series because I want to occasionally dabble in 4K 60 frames per second gaming. I'm content with that. I don't need anything more. But it really just depends on who you are as a person and what kind of gaming you do, or maybe you edit. Depends on,
Now
to me,
the
it's
AI
still good
performance
value.
is doubled going to this, so that's pretty cool. Again, that probably allows it to take advantage of the new multi-frame generation with DLSS 4. Now the clock speed is interesting because despite having more cores and everything, it might, with the lower clock speed, the clock speed has gone down, not even be able to take advantage of those cores as much. It just depends how good the new architecture is for efficiency. Now, they have the same amount of VRAM, but the new card will have more bandwidth because it's on GDDR7 instead of GDDR6X. I think
Quicker
NVIDIA is
response
specifically
times, quicker
hiding this card
bandwidth
from
to
us and trying to
generate
make it
frames.
feel like the 5070 Ti is actually providing great value by, jumping up with more VRAM versus the original 4070 Ti. It providing DLSS 4 and actually dropping the price compared to
I'd
that
say
card.
that
But I
depends on your
think this
perception.
4070 Ti Super is really
Again, we don't have the real-time performance. I strongly advise people to jump to conclusions until you actually have reviews.
the card that should have been compared. And that moves us on to the RTX 5070. I'm gonna go and hide the 4070 Super. Both of the cards will both be $550. Now you might be screaming at me, hey Vex, you're wrong about the 4070. That card actually is a $600 MSRP card. Well, NVIDIA, when they launched the Super series back in January, it's been about a year at this point, they actually officially dropped the MSRP of the 4070 to $550, even though it originally was $600 because they were making room for the 4070 Super. These ones are very close. So the performance of these, it can't be that far apart. Usually on a generation, they increase the core count, they increase the efficiency of those cores in order to get a lot more performance, and that's just not what we're seeing here because there's 5888 CUDA cores here, which would lead to better rasterization performance, and there's 6144 CUDA cores on the one next to it. Like the 5070 doesn't have that much more CUDA cores. It only has 2 more ray tracing cores. The AI performance, again, is doubled. You can see where NVIDIA's priorities are here. They're prioritizing AI instead of actual performance on the cards. And it's probably because the actual performance on the cards can't get that much better or something like that. Like clock speed is about the same. VRAM capacity is the same. They both have 12 gigabytes. That would have been something to increase on the 5070 that would be pretty cool. But because it does on GDDR7, the 5070 does actually have some more memory bandwidth. Power of the card is increasing by 50 watts. The 4070, actually, when I run it most of the time, it only draws like 180 watts. It's a super efficient card. That's one of the coolest parts about it.
Well, the other thing is they're always going to give you the most power demanding games, not just the games you play. But I get what you're saying.
What's interesting here is the 4070 Super. So we look up here, the 4070 Super on PC Part Picker. We can see this card is still available for $650 at the moment. Exactly the price that it launched. The price really hasn't changed since launch. The 4070 Super will probably beat
probably still
the
high
5070. It will most likely beat the 5070. That's because, let's hide the 4070 here, just to like kind of clear up the confusion and all that kind of stuff. Much more CUDA cores, 1,000 more CUDA cores than the 5070. More ray tracing cores. Even if the 5070 has more efficient ray tracing cores with this generation, it might just match the ray tracing performance of the 4070 Super.
Yeah,
now,
I could agree
the
with
5070 is going to have a lot more AI performance. NVIDIA is going to dangle that.
That's where I think the new card is going to outshine. I think with no DLSS, the cards are probably going to be very similar, but with it, you're going to see the 50 series just boost frame rates because, again, more operations, plus a higher memory bandwidth, plus quicker RAM, plus just enough power to run that at the speed that NVIDIA is wanting. Yeah, you're going to have better, how do I put it? Better alternative performance. It's not raw performance. It's not coming off of the card. It's AI.
Over 40 series head that, this one can use or multi-frame generation and stuff. That's something I do want to mention is if you do look at these cards and you just, take out the 40 series cards and just kind of hide those guys, forget that those exist, If you want these specs just right next to each other to see like, you're deciding on one, and the 5080 is basically half of a 5090, and it's also half the price of a 5090. Just kind of crazy. They literally just chop that shit in half. 5070 Ti looks like a decent value in terms of the specs here. And then the 5070 is definitely largely cut down. And I would hope that mid-gen, that we'll actually end up seeing more VRAM added to these cards in the mid-gen refresh if they do get one. If there's like a...
I mean, I would argue, this is just, I'm going to argue for myself. I've got a 30 series. It's pretty enticing to go to a 5070 if it's just as good as a 4090 at $600. That's pretty good value for the money. I mean, I was thinking about just getting a 3080 Ti and calling it a day, but they're really expensive. It's like, I don't see any downsides in my position having a 3060 Ti to go get a 5070 for $600. When personally, I like the 30 series. That's just good cards in my personal opinion. But if it's going to be just as much, if not cheaper in some cases, might as well just go grab a 5070. I think it just depends on who you are and what you want out of a card.
50 series.
Because again, if people don't like the pricing, they don't like the performance, you don't have to buy it. You can go buy an Intel card. Speak with your money, people. Please, please, please speak with your money. I'm begging you. Do not just buy a card because you're like, oh, people told me the video is really good. Look at what reviews. Look at the specs. Do some research. It's free. All it takes is time. It literally costs you no money to do research. Do what works for you. If you play Fortnite all the time and Rocket League and you're not really playing super intense games, you don't need a 5070. You can get like a 3060 off of KSL for like $200. Go get an ARC. An Intel ARC for $250 brand new is a great deal, and it's going to give you really good frames for those games. Like, do the research. Ask friends, ask family, go on forums. There's so much information out there. If you utilize it, you can make a good informed decision. I would say don't buy the 50 series until you actually can see the performance compared to other GPUs that it's competing with, because in my opinion, that's your responsibility as a consumer, is do what benefits you most. Do not follow the mind herd mentality of, well, Jimmy down the road has a 5080, so I got to get one too. Da, da, da. And then you're $800 into debt in a car that you don't even really use that much. It's a bad purchase. You know, I mean, if you want to make bad purchases, go for it. But I'm just saying, do the research, look into what works for you.
Super cards.
Because everyone's going to have different needs.
Super cards midway through, then those are the ones that are going to end up costing more, because these prices seem kind of reasonable.
Yes, and just like I'm saying, this is just my theory, my opinion. It is not the end all be all. If you want to get a 5070 or a 5090 or the 50, you're psyched, great. Be psyched. Go buy your card. I'm not telling you you're a bad person if you do it. I'm just saying if you're on the fence like me, do the research. Look at some YouTube videos.
But if they add more VRAM to the cards, then they're probably gonna cost more. Let me know what you think about this. I am really, really fucking tired. I've been streaming.
Bro, go to sleep. Self-care, brother. You gotta make sure you're taking care of yourself, or else you can't take care of your audience.
Recording this and compiling the spreadsheet.
Thank you.
And everything. So hopefully this helps you like really get an image for this, because
So this is the end of the video. Vex is the name of the channel. I'm gonna leave a link in the video. Definitely go to subscribe, go watch his content. I just stumbled upon it and I love promoting small YouTubers. I mean, he's got more subscribers than I do. Way to go, man. Happy for you. So, but still, I mean, I don't know of him. Maybe he's super well known, but good video. Let me know your thoughts. Are you guys totally for AI in cards and upscaling frames, or are you kind of against it and just want raw performance? Let me know, because I'm really curious. Peace.